Catherine, call the roll, please.
Chairperson Hadaway.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Giomi.
Here.
Commissioner Barrett.
Here.
Commissioner Providenti.
Here.
Commissioner Swerzik.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Okay, this is the meeting Tuesday, November 17th. Call to order. We are done. Public comment. If there's any public to want to make a comment, I'll take it now. There's none. You have the minutes of August 15th before you. Unless there's any suggested changes or modifications, I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved. Go ahead. I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Our main business is item D, to adopt a resolution concerning the submission to the Carson City Debt Management Commission of a proposal to issue general obligation sewer bonds additionally secured by pledge revenues in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $4,875,000 and approving details in connection therewith. Okay.
Good afternoon. For the record, John Peterson with J&A Consulting Group. As was mentioned, this is a proposal by the city to issue up to $4,875,000 of general obligation sewer bonds. Primarily, these are bonds that will be used to fund improvements to the city's stormwater system. Realize that it says sewer bonds on the cover, and we're doing stormwater projects. A couple of years ago, the city, for bonding purposes, combined those two programs, which allows the city to better, when the time is needed, to issue bonds under a combined revenue pledge rather than a separate stormwater pledge and a separate sewer revenue pledge. This is one step of many steps that the city will need to take in order to issue these bonds. The city has already adopted a resolution, and assuming approval today, there would be another adoption of a resolution of intent at the upcoming November 16th meeting of the Board of Supervisors. There would be a 90-day, what we call petition period, until the bonds could be issued, and the city would need to adopt a bond ordinance sometime in 2018 after that 90-day petition period is ended before these bonds could be issued. So I just want to make sure for the record, no one believes that this is the last time that we're going to hear about these. We will be coming back to the Board of Supervisors. There are a couple of criteria that the Debt Management Commission looks at when considering these requests. These include whether the total outstanding general obligation debt of the city plus the proposed debt is less than the statutory debt limitation that's in the city's charter, so we'll cover that. It also covers the use of the pledged revenues from the sewer system to repay this bond and other bonds that are secured by those pledged revenues. That's an important finding that we need to have, that those revenues are sufficient to repay the debt and that the city will not be using property taxes to repay these bonds. Again, these would be general obligation bonds. And really with that, I'd just maybe like to dive into the supporting material that was given to you.
Please.
There's a packet, and I'm looking at page 3 and page 4 of that packet based on the city's 2017-2018 fiscal year assessed value of let's call it roughly $1.6 billion. Its legal limit for general obligation debt is $236,821,354. That's on page 3. On page 4, the currently outstanding general obligation debt of the city is just above $180 million. And then on page 5, we have the proposed bonds. And so once we take that limit and subtract the outstanding and proposed debt, that would result in the city having approximately $51 million of general obligation debt limit that is unused, and therefore we do not exceed the debt limit in statute and in the city's charter. So we meet that criteria. The next pages that I would like to look at are on page 7 and page 8. Page 7 outlines the existing bonds that are secured by the sewer revenues, and again, that's sewer and stormwater systems, those two funds in the city, as well as the proposed bonds. And those, based on the estimate for these 2018 stormwater bonds, we would max out at approximately $5.3 million in fiscal year 2019 of sewer secured debt. And then based on the 2018 budget for the sewer and the stormwater funds, and this includes an adjustment based on the 30% rate increase that was approved by the Board of Supervisors earlier this year for the Stormwater Fund, we would generate approximately $9.2 million in pledged revenues, giving us a bonded coverage of 1.74 times. So again, more than enough sewer and stormwater revenues to repay the bonds without using a property tax, any kind of levy. That's kind of the highlight of this request. Based on these findings, we believe that the city would be able to issue these bonds without utilizing a geo or a property tax levy, and therefore there would not be any other affected governments here in Carson City. And I'll pause there and see if there are any questions.
Could you tell us one more time why we're seeing this in the sewer? It's for stormwater improvements, but it's part of the sewer fund? Do you commingle, does the city commingle sewer revenues with stormwater revenues?
No. So what this does is, from the bondholder's perspective, the revenues that are pledged come out of the sewer fund and the stormwater fund. It's the combination of those two funds. From the city's accounting perspective, they're totally separate.
Okay.
When we're looking at the bonds, we evaluate these based on the stormwater's portion of the debt service versus the stormwater's portion of the revenues, and same with the sewer fund. But from the bondholder presentation and also this presentation, those numbers are aggregated.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I do. Let's go and talk about the debt limitation, and now you took us to page 5.
Yes, page 5.
And if this is approved, we have approximately $51 million available.
Well, it's unused, yes.
It's unused. And I'm a school board member looking at some developments that have been proposed by the city, and we're looking at possibly a new school or schools, and which may exceed this $51 million. What have you looked at that, or what the impact is? Because these are all overlapping debts for the city.
Thank you. That's a good, excellent question. The debt limit that we're talking about here applies only to the city. So the city has a limit, and their limit is based on the 15% of assessed value. The school district has a separate limit, and the only bonds that count against those limits are bonds issued by those entities. So the activities here of the city would not preclude the school district from being able to issue any bonds so long as it meets similar criteria to what we're talking about here. But the debt limit is not a kind of a commingled thing.
And if I remember correctly, the school has considerably more capacity than the city does.
I believe that's correct.
Right.
Oftentimes with these debt limits, the restricting factor is not the is not it's the revenues that come in.
So the, John, question I had is on page 8, under coverage, you've got a footnote reference number 4, but I didn't find a number 4. I don't know if that was just an oversight. If it was, maybe you can state what that 4 would be so that it's on the record.
It is an oversight. I apologize. That 4 should not have been there.
We'll let it go this time, but
Yeah, thank you.
Where
I
is the
genuinely appreciate it.
Oh, covered.
yeah. Do you want to explain what
Well,
that footnote 4 would be, or?
What has been presented, and this is a drafting error on my part, use this document from another presentation that was done elsewhere. What sometimes is done with these coverages, it shows the maximum annual debt service in all of the fiscal years and all of the historical years. And so that footnote 4 was saying that was not the debt service paid in those prior years. It was this hypothetical maximum annual debt service. That's not what we're doing here, and that's why that footnote 4 does not apply.
Okay.
The only time that maximum debt service number applies is for the fiscal 18, where we are combining the hypothetical max annual debt service to show that we will have the revenues to repay these bonds.
Good catch.
I just wanted to confirm that the work that's being done is the work that's noted on the 5-year capital improvement plan that was submitted, correct? Relative to these bonds? I mean, the numbers match, so that's my assumption.
That's correct.
Okay. And finally, do we know, and I guess this is a question for the deputy city manager, is are we anticipating other debt in the near future that you're aware of?
In the storm drain fund?
Any fund. I'm just talking about debt in general, since we are the Debt Management Commission.
Not that I'm aware, there might be something from the infrastructure tax, the sales tax.
Relative to the corridor improvements?
Yeah, the South Carson Street corridor, but I think that won't be until 2019. Is that right, Sherry? Yes.
Okay, thank you.
To piggyback on
John.
that, on what Stacy was asking, I could do this math myself, but I am not the math whiz that is arrayed out here in front of me. What percentage is the 51 million of the 236 authorized debt we're at currently on our assessed valuation? It's fairly healthy, isn't it? In other words, what percentage do we have left that's untapped?
Yeah,
I
mean,
and I don't mean I want to tap it.
yeah. Well, I mean, roughly you're talking about 25, 26, maybe 30%. Yeah, it is a healthy percentage-wise, but really, I mean, we look at the dollar amount and look at the future plans of the city, and this number changes. So this is the number for fiscal year 2018 as of today. As the city repays bonds, that outstanding debt number goes down. When we get into next fiscal year that starts July 1, there will be a new assessed value, which, assuming that it will go up, would result in additional capacity, and really would be up to the city if there were projects to see whether they wanted to propose additional GO bond revenue-supported debt or not.
I just wanted it on the record that we have a fairly healthy gap there, and I know that that's the way it works. That
Yes.
assessments go up, bonds go down, hopefully.
Yes.
Thank you.
Nick, did you have a question? No. Any other questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion on item D, the resolutions you have before you.
I'll go ahead and move to, well, what am I moving to adopt the resolution? I'm not
Right.
doing that, am I? Is that what I need to do? Yeah, just read it.
It's
All right, I'm moving to adopt a resolution concerning the submission to the Carson City Debt Management Commission of a proposal to issue general obligation sewer bonds additionally secured by pledged revenues in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $4,875,000 and proving details in connection therewith.
Second.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item E, we've already set, right, Kathleen?
Yes, sir.
February 13th?
Yes.
Okay. Any public comment? Any commission comment? All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.